So let's go ahead and take a look at our skills exercise and what we need to do to get this done. So this is a simple plumbing circuit made with 2 elbows. I have a bend with a bend support here. I've got a straight coupler here. I have a PEX valve here with PEX barbed ends. I have a T here, and then I have an end cap down here. So all of our fittings are represented in this simple plumbing circuit. Great practice, and we can do the same process we did here to make all this happen. First step though is going through our plans. Our plans call out for each piece to be a separate length, and we have a letter of the alphabet for each one of these parts. Let's start with part A. It's called out at 12.5 inches, so I'll measure, mark, and cut that. I've got my PEX pipe, and I need to go ahead and measure it and then mark it. So I'll mark it at 12.5 inches, and then we'll cut it. This stuff cuts super easy. Line it up there, snip, and we're done. That's all you need to cut that. That's part A, 12.5 inches. We need to turn a corner here according to our plans to get to part B. I'm going to use my brass elbow and a couple of these Pro crimp rings. My crimp ring goes on first, and then I'll go ahead and put my elbow in. Now it's time for part B, and part B is called out at 8 inches. I have that part cut here. This is my part B. Let's double check the measurement. And yep, I'm dead on 8 inches. I've got my Pro crimp ring to go on the end of this pipe. So let's continue this circuit. So now we can go ahead and crimp this fitting in place. I'll get my crimper in here, and you're going to see me struggle a little bit with this because we're loose here at the beginning. I've got it lined up, and then I'm going to go ahead, double check it, and go ahead and crimp it. And there's that one. Let's go ahead and do the other one. And while you're doing this, make sure that everything's lined up. The pipe is up against the fitting. And we can go ahead and crimp it. Done. That's all it takes to do this PEX stuff. It doesn't get any easier than this for PEX. Our second piece is part C. That's 3.5 inches. I've got that pipe right here, and in between part B and C is a valve. This is a PEX crimp valve. I've got my valve here, and I want to turn my handle so that when it's working, it is oriented in the off position facing into the circuit. So this would be on, that's off. So this is the right way to do it. We don't want to turn it this way. That will go there, and I need 2 more of these Pro crimp rings to make this happen. Crimp rings go on first, and then I'll just slide my valve in there. Everything's nice and tight. We can go ahead and crimp this in place. Little adjustment. That's the first one. And we're going to do this second one here, and then I'm going to show you a little trick. Looks pretty lined up. So I'm not too worried about my valve being a little angled down, because we can give this pipe just a little twist. We can rotate our fittings a little bit. You don't want to go overboard with that. Our next fitting is a T. I've got my T right here. Make sure you get this T oriented properly. We want the branch line running in the same direction as the first pipe. We also need our crimp rings. I'm using a plastic one this time, so I will use these standard rings. Ring goes on first, then our fitting. Make sure it bottoms out on our stops. And we need another piece to come out this way. That would be piece D. That's 10 inches. I've got my 10-inch pipe here. Let me double check my measurement on this, and I'm 10 inches. We're good with that. So I have a ring on this end, and then I'll install this on my pipe. Make sure that bottoms out too. Rings go tight to the stops. Now we can crimp these 2 in place. That's one of them. Let's do the other. All right, there's our T. And at this point, my T is lined up pretty flat. I'm feeling good about that. We need to put an end plug in on this part D. That's going to be a standard crimp ring and my end plug here, no problem. And that goes in here like that. And we can crimp that. Yeah, looks good. Crimped. This is a good time. Let's stop and check or gauge a few of these crimps to make sure that our tool is adjusted properly. What you don't want to do is to get finished with this and find out some bad news. We're using the 1/2 inch space here to measure these fittings. If it slides on with a little friction, we're good. You don't want too much play, and if it won't go on at all, then we know we have a problem. So it fits there. That one's a little tight, but I guarantee you it will work this way. That's good. We've got another one that feels a little tight, but it's good that way. So we're good there. If I, at this point, found a problem with every one of these fittings and this tool would not slip on here or it slipped on too loosely, we need to make an adjustment to this tool. And you can see on this tool, hopefully we can get a close-up of this, there are some numbers and a little dial on here. This is our adjustment for this tool. It's a cam, and we can change the amount of clamping action that happens in both of these jaws here. And we would adjust it on this nut on the back here. That would help us get to that place where the tool was working properly. So we only have 4 settings on this tool. Right now we're at 0. This is a fairly new tool. As a tool wears, it requires some of that adjustment to be made. But just remember that this is our this will tell the truth as to how well we're crimping each time. So the next piece, I'm going to skip down and turn this corner here. I want to use a plastic elbow here. I don't know which fittings you will be using when you do this skills exercise. I'm kind of mixing it up so that you get the idea. Chances are you will only have one kind. So keep in mind, whichever kind that is, the ring you choose for that, which is the best ring to use. For the plastic ones, I'm always using the standard rings, and I prefer, for the brass ones, I prefer those pro crimp rings with the spacers on them. So I'll go ahead and install my ring on this end. I want to turn this corner with a 90 and then push that ring up against it. And I need my next piece to go in there, which is piece E. That's going to be 3.5 inches. I've got that part cut. We'll go ahead and put a ring on this one and install that. And we can go ahead and crimp this corner now. This is the thing about these standard rings, is they'll move around on you. So you got to double check before you crimp it. And I've been able to remove crimp rings, but it is very difficult and it's not something that you want to have to do. So let's go ahead and crimp this other one really quickly. And at this point, the tool is holding the ring. I can make a small adjustment if I need to, and everything holds together. And I'll go ahead and crimp it. So there's that. We're moving on now to our coupler. We want to make a straight connection here from this pipe to the next one. That's just what the plans say. I've got 2 different couplers. I'm going to use my brass one. And with my brass one, I can use my pro crimp rings. Ring goes on first, then my fitting goes in. I'm not going to put the next pipe on. I'm just going to crimp this one in place. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I'll show you why here in a minute. So there's that one. And then I have only 2 more connections to make. My part F is the one on the plans. that is bent, we are going to turn a corner without putting a fitting in. This is the sort of the beauty of PEX, is we can take this straight line and make this connection by just putting a bend in it. We'll use a bend support, and this is our plastic piece that will hold this pipe in a 90-degree turn without kinking it. That's really important. It's really simple to use. You stick it in one end and hold it, and then we'll get to bend it into the other side. So as I bend it in, it's going to hold it in that right angle shape. That is the beginning of what we need to do. Here's the problem though, is that we need this bend in a specific place. If I was to connect it here right now, it's too far over. So I need to slide this bend down a little more this direction. And it'll sort of shift around in there and kind of eyeball it. I'm almost there, but I'm not quite, so I'll shift it just a little more. And that should be just about right. So now I'm lined up here and lined up here. We can go ahead and put our crimp rings on either end, crimp this, and this circuit will be complete. So on this end, I have a brass fitting, so I'll use my Pro crimp ring, slide him on. And then on this end, oh, look at that. So I probably need to do a little more adjustment here. I'll move this down just a hair to get that lined up here. And now I'm lined up perfectly. I like that. Standard crimp ring. I've got a plastic fitting. Slide that guy on, push it to stop and pull that ring up. I have 2 crimps to do here. Let's go ahead and do each end of this pipe. This is a lot more similar to how you would do it in an installation. The pipe would be standing, floating inside of a wall between 2 studs or off of a panel like that, and it makes it so much easier. This one is very close to the table, which will make it a little more difficult to do. Crimped and done. So that's the basics of our PEX installation. So far you've used every fitting that's available to get this job done, and even situations where you don't have fittings at all. We will move on in later lessons onto different materials like this PVC here. We'll do similar skills exercises. We'll even do something like this in copper, and you'll get to put all that together and make it work. I love plumbing. I hope this is fun for you. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the later lessons.